So we have had some requests to do these.
Okay.
I've earmarked only for a couple just to see what they do. And we're just going to do this first one and see what it does. Because it's the least longest of all of them.
Yeah.
So if you want us to do more, let us know and we will. So I alluded to this in the first part of the Angry Video Game Nerd. Linkara, History of Power Rangers. He has gone through and done every season.
Ooh.
Most of these are in multiple parts, like Mighty Morphin is in like 5 parts.
I wonder why. 60 episodes.
62.
Oh, okay.
So that's why we're just doing this first one, maybe the first 2, and seeing how it goes.
All right.
You've watched
Yes.
a good chunk or all of Mighty Morphin growing up.
Yes.
You've seen the show. Religiously.
Multiple episodes, but yes, not.
Yeah. Where did you stop?
Zia. Or Turbo.
You stopped at Turbo.
Just Turbo, Zio, and Space.
No.
No?
MMPR.
Right.
I got that MMPR in the cooler. Zio.
Okay.
Turbo. In Space. Lost Galaxy. You want me to keep going?
That's for real. I didn't feel Lost Galaxy.
Answer it on camera.
Why not?
Supply room. Oh, an important announcement. Anywho.
Thank you.
The hell you won't.
So, let's dive into this, and if you guys love it, we'll do more.
It's Rita. She's escaped and she's attacking the planet. Teleport to us by overbearing.
Sorry. Overbearing.
Over emotional.
Over emotional. Why was he holding a teddy bear?
I was afraid of that.
Hey, thanks, Zordon. It's only the fate of the frickin' planet at stake. Did someone change the water filter in your tube lately?
Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 1.
The history.
5 years ago,
Sharingan.
I started a little project called
That's
History
super
of
mega.
Power Rangers. I had done a Power Rangers
Turbo.
on
You've seen the one with the keys?
Yeah.
and
And that's them.
Watch the show,
Yep.
and in my rewatch, I had crazy theories and ideas that popped into my head. So I wanted to share those thoughts with people. To make matters worse, I decided to do it for every season, giving comprehensive analysis and recaps of the entire show, even for seasons that I hadn't watched before. Those videos were
They're different
hosted on a
colors.
service called Blip.tv that sadly no longer exists.
Yeah.
While the original videos still exist, a lot has happened over the last 5 years. At the time of this recording, anyway. Most prominently for me is that I am on YouTube now. When I began rebuilding my presence on YouTube, I re-uploaded all those videos. Sometime later, however, I was hit with 2 copyright strikes from Toei, the company that owns and produces Super Sentai, and the videos were all taken down. However, these videos have been one of the most popular things I've ever produced, and I like being able to pay rent. As such, I decided to re-edit all of my History of Power Rangers videos and put them up again, making them more YouTube friendly. At the time of this video's creation, Samurai and Megaforce have had that done and are viewable through links on my website, since the videos are unlisted and I prefer to keep my channels
Can't hear you.
uploads in order when possible. The audio of all these videos will remain mostly the same, with occasional exceptions like cutting out my breathing, making corrections to things I got wrong,
I hate Jungle
or
Fury.
reducing the amount of continuous footage that I show. This video, however, is most likely to get the most amount of attention, because most people don't even seem to realize that Power Rangers kept going after Mighty Morphin. And as such, I felt it necessary to fully re-record the video so
Whore mouth.
it's somewhat professional. Then
That's one of the
again,
best team-ups right there.
Most of you by now anyway, since it's taken me this long to get to the damn point, and my only real joke so far has been
Incredible.
about Zords.
No capes, scouting. No capes.
No capes.
It caused problems.
Anyway, the point is, if this is your first time here, welcome to the History of Power Rangers, an opinionated and serious analysis of a children's show utilizing Japanese footage mixed with American footage about rubber-suited monsters getting punched by people in spandex. And with a premise like that, you can see why it deserves serious analysis. Because this is a biased perspective, I fully
Where did they
expect
get
people to
weapons?
lob-hate at me for disagreeing with their opinions, and that's alright. This series is not a comparison to the sword shows that Power Rangers uses footage from, collectively referred to as Super Sentai. I have no interest in the Sentai. Not that I question its quality, it's simply a
Here's your
matter
team
of
up.
me not caring about it. All of us have heard from friends and loved ones about something that is a must-see, something that is the best ever, and that we do ourselves a disservice to not see it. But in the end, there's still stuff we don't see simply because we're
Drops
not
the leg.
interested. In this case, I grew up watching
Sweep the leg.
Power Rangers, and it is Power Rangers that I have come to praise. Or bury, depending on the season.
You see his Morphin was cracked.
Occasionally, from what little I do know,
I'll try to be quiet during this.
who have enough
But I-
explanations for some of the more bizarre things that Power Rangers occasionally does.
Who let him out?
Information is usually secondhand.
Why is that so
Remember, it's
culturally
possible the
insensitive?
information
Asian
I
playing
have
an
is
Indian.
wrong. By the same token, I am not
would never air that now.
interested in Super Sentai's
Masked Rider.
Kamen Rider will have some influence in a few seasons, but for now, it's just not my thing. That being said, the current highest milestone goal of my Patreon, assuming you aren't watching this years later after Patreon has become a sapient being that was forced to be destroyed through chemical warfare combined with appealing to the best traits of humanity, is to review other American shows that are like Power Rangers, including VR Troopers, Beetleborgs, and yes, Kamen Rider Dragon Knight. So,
I don't remember. Did you say yes? You've heard of Beetleborgs and or have seen something of Beetleborgs?
I won't say I've seen someone. Yeah.
It's got the blue Jay Leno ghost dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
that happens, feel free to send some support my way. I am not reviewing the first Power Rangers movie for a simple reason. It has nothing to do with the show story-wise.
True.
For 20 plus years, Power Rangers has enjoyed a mostly continuous continuity, some seasons leading directly into the next with recurring characters, but the movie takes place in its own separate universe, and I feel no need to cover it.
Fair
For a
enough.
more comprehensive look at it, though, I did
Marvel
review
this
the
long.
comic adaptation. With all that out of the way, let's talk about the first season. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was an idea that Haim Saban had had for several years in the 80s, in particular in 1986 producing a pilot for adapting the Sentai Bioman. Saban and partner Shuki Levy were mostly known at the time for composing music for kids shows, including but not limited to Inspector Gadget, He-Man, and the Real Ghostbusters. Saban loved the idea of
Keep
mixing
trying. One day you'll
American
be a
footage,
ranger.
saving production costs a ton, but unfortunately, no
Maybe
one
eat your
was
spinach.
According to Levy, Saban carried the of it around and kept pitching it to networks. And they all thought it was the worst thing they'd ever seen. Of
course they did.
In 1988, Saban
Yeah.
started his own production company and
coming
made
back.
shows, including the hit that was the X-Men animated series.
Is it X-Men
However,
97?
in the early 90s,
That's what it's called.
Marcus Bush, the head of Fox Kids, was looking for a new series that'd be adventurous, fun, and silly, and Saban showed her the Bioman pilot. Loving the idea, they refined the concepts and negotiated with Toei for a different, then more recent Sentai,
We wanted Arsenio.
Rangers, and thus Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was born. The series begins somewhere in space. The implication has always been that this is the moon, although in the Sentai it was not. But as the show progresses, we'll learn that the
Mike.
moon is weird in the Power Rangers universe. There's a breathable atmosphere, for that matter, an atmosphere at all. The gravity is normal, and we're still landing on it. Now, in some circles, people debate about whether or not this isn't actually just some other planet.
It's like,
floating
hey.
in Earth. We'll refer to the villains being on the moon, we're gonna call it
On.
as such. Anyway, two astronauts find what's called a dumpster, hence the title of the first episode.
WM spray paint across
Something
it.
else I never got. It's not a dumpster, it's a bin or a barrel. Maybe you can get away with calling it a trash can, but most trash cans aren't made of stone or have jewels engraved in them.
Most.
But anyway, the astronauts
Super
decide
glue.
to not radio in that they found an alien object, but instead decide to open the quote-unquote dumpster, releasing
Hey,
Rita
girl.
Repulsa, her band of critics, her gorilla knight Goldar, her monster maker and scientist Finster, and the comic relief duo of Squat and Babu. Rita Repulsa is a sorceress often referred to as an empress of evil, because alliteration makes you sound cooler than a sorceress of mild irritation. Anyway, she spent
Little bit.
10,000 years in the dumpster and now wishes to conquer the first planet she sees, Earth.
Stole that from the gym. I'm a genie.
To assemble a team of 5 teenagers.
So much power.
And let's meet those teenagers. Other installments will save character stuff for the end, but the problem with these early seasons is that while the characters have personalities,
Jump.
they don't have much in terms of an arc. First is Jason, the Red Ranger, who teaches a karate class. He is stoic and confident. Zach, the Black Ranger, is Jason's best friend and
Rerun.
teaches what he refers to as
From
hip-hop
what's happening?
keto. Basically
Hip-hop
combining
Hip-hop
dance and
keto?
fighting.
Yeah.
Admittedly, that's kind of stupid in hindsight, but actually it does make for some impressive fighting moves. And some silly ones, but hey, on my show I've got a ninja-style dancer, so who am I to judge? Next, there's Trini, the Yellow Ranger. Okay, let's on this. Yes, the Black Ranger is black and the Yellow Ranger is Asian. Let's get this out of the way. They honestly did not realize what they had done in casting until about the 10th episode.
That's a lie.
Yeah.
I seen it the first time I seen Trini. Hey, girl.
Most of the time. There were actually a few pilots made of the first episode.
Yeah.
Actually taking place
Have you ever seen the pilot?
instead of the
Oh, that's Trini.
What?
In at least one of those pilots, Trini was played by actress Audrey Dubois, who is not Asian. Although ironically, Tommy, who would later become the Red Ranger, was a character with Native American connections. Whoops. Anyway, Trini is also a martial artist, but it's harder to get a gauge on her character. She's probably the least developed of the original team. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the actress who played her, Thuy Trang, tragically passed away in a car crash in 2001. Trini served the purpose of translating the technobabble of the next character, Billy. Billy is the stereotypical brainy nerd, yet if you see him without bulkier clothes, his physique is actually on par with the others on the show. Billy will be a mainstay of the show for the longest time, even after he stops being a Power Ranger. And finally, Kimberly. The second to last of the original 5 to leave the series, she is the stereotypical Valley Girl.
I'm a
Gymnast
pony.
who
I'm a
loves them
pony.
all, and etc., etc. Like Billy, because of how long she stayed on the show, her character will develop beyond the superficial qualities we see in the early days. However, it's also time to meet the real stars of the show.
Oh no, look who's here. Ball and
Skull.
Hulk and Skull last through 6 seasons of Power Rangers and are the characters that have the most development over the course of it. What started as comic relief bullies evolved into 2 characters who nobly stood up to evil.
Oh, yeah, you've
I
seen
love
In
these
Space.
two. They're like the 3 stooges of my
said you-
generation. Yes, they're
You said you stopped after Turbo.
No, I said in space.
Okay,
That's why I
alright.
stopped in space.
Okay, all right.
When they were
Comedy was
police
often quite
officers.
I got it.
predictable, but they added some much
They were police officers at the end of
Yeah.
Mighty Morphin.
Oh, okay.
They turned into chimpanzees in Zeo
Okay.
and became private investigators. No, they were chimps in Turbo.
Right.
And then in space, they were on, and they were just around.
Okay.
needed levity during some of the darker turns of the first few seasons.
You know what? If you like this, and we'll get to that point where In Space comes along. How about that?
How about that?
And if you want to go backwards, this is Lenny and Squiggy from Laverne and Shirley.
Sky, yes, and what's fit? I have ice cream. Beerus comes along.
The plots were actually more interesting than the plot of the episodes, and they remain some of the most popular characters on the show.
hat.
Even if they
Yeah.
began as bullies, though not particularly good ones,
Nope.
since it was obvious any one of the Rangers was capable of kicking their asses, these are the 2 that went through the most changes. Since they are the longest-lasting cast members of the original and the only ones with an arc, I consider them to be the actual main characters of the show. Incidentally, it turns out their first names are Farkas and Eugene. Yeah, I'd have gone by Bulk and Skull too. While there can be very good character moments for the Rangers, they tend to be a bit on the bland side. They're always trying to be goody-goods, always talking about teamwork, friendship, the heart of the card, blah, blah. In a show that really liked having clear-cut heroes and villains, Bulk and Skull stood in a gray area for quite a while, and their ultimate nobility served as a perfect capstone to their characters. While in the first season they served primarily as bullies, there were times when their better nature shined through. 2 specific examples come to mind. The first is when they adopt a pig. Now, ultimately, the pig proved to just be a monster, and they were frightened of it when that happened, but they seemed to actually be nice to it and want to take care of it after adopting it. The other is in the episode Crystal of Nightmares, where the 2 are put into a dream state. And what do they dream about? Becoming superheroes and saving the world.
Yeah.
In the dream, they can't thrive.
Fat Man and Bobbin.
But I think the fact that they want to be good guys, even if they are selfish and inept, will help.
The mighty fall after Clerks.
But nevertheless, launches an attack on Earth, causing an earthquake to move As people jog lightly out of the juice bar in panic, the 5 teams suddenly decide to stay exactly where they are.
It's like the blind fashion designer. Somebody catch me.
Zordon explains the plot of the show, that they have to fight Rita using morphers that will harness the power of ancient beasts like dinosaurs, the saber-toothed tiger, and the mastodon. We also meet Alpha 5. Alpha can get pretty annoying early on with his constant proclamations of "ay ay 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 ay," but he's
Interesting side note, that is the model name of the new DeLorean.
To help do all the things
The Alpha
Zordon
5
can't do
versus the
since,
DMC-12.
Teams don't buy any of this.
Ay, ay, ay. I hate that horn.
One would think teleportation
Fix
to a robot would be compelling evidence.
Right?
Rita is somehow able to discern that Zordon is doing all of this, and while we learn later that no one...
Her ears against the door.
The cup. Source of power. She does send a squad of her foot soldiers, the Putty Patrol, to attack and kill the Rangers. The Putties are pretty cool. Sure, it's just a guy in gray spandex, but it's the face that really makes it. Kind of like a deformed Cyberman face. What's amusing to me in hindsight is that if she hadn't attacked them, they very well may have never become Rangers, since during the fight they decide to use the Morphers and, for the first time, become the Power Rangers. Since this is lifted from the Sentai footage, they are immediately teleported into a city to use that footage. They also get their Zords, the giant robots that, well, let's be honest, most of the time the individual Zords are pretty useless. Sure, sometimes they'll use them individually, but hey, it's cooler to have a big single robot instead of 5 smaller ones.
Yep.
The original Megazord is classic. From the horns to the big-ass chest to the power sword, it's just iconic. I love it because it's just so simple. A big blocky robot that looks like he can kick your ass. It has an Optimus Prime face going for it. One of the recurring
Can the Megazord beat you up? You bet Jurassic.
Megazord usually gets the
He can.
and also an alternate mode, or just an alternate Zord altogether, while the rest basically just exist to be combined into the Megazord. As the first episodes, there were a lot of goofy ideas
Timed that wrong.
put in because they were still finding out their place and how they wanted the show to work. For example, in the second episode, we see this super duper martial arts move.
Ready? Locked on. Let's do it.
This was our show, ladies and gentlemen, or lady and gentlemen.
Suddenly puts that scene in Matrix Reloaded with Neo spinning on a stick in perspective, doesn't it?
Yes.
Elements seen in the first few episodes wouldn't really make any reappearances later. For example, the Rad Bug.
Woo!
The Rad Bug is one of the silliest, most illogical things Power Rangers ever did. Billy invented a flying car that could enter the command center somehow.
It's from the Super
He
Sentai.
used technology from the command center to build this thing.
Couldn't hurt me
Because
fly.
otherwise, Billy just invented a flying car out of crap that he had
Was
in
that
his
part of
garage.
Flubber? I might have been Flubber. I don't know.
No, Lindsay Lohan had That's where you, that's what you were.
One of the best things they ever did for the series, and has had a lasting impact.
Allegedly.
Where even the advertising for the final episode of the season 30 years later was all about the return. Jason David Frank as
Woo!
the Green Ranger. Love him or hate him, this was the character that really cemented the Power Rangers.
You sit over there.
In the days when new episodes of the series were
They gave me 2 choices.
Agreeing with evil, Rita unveiled her plan.
You're down at Human Resource, and I chose wrong. I chose wrong.
Where she got the power coin, we'll never know, especially given what we learn later concerning their creation. Unfortunately, the Green Ranger is also where we see some of the seams fall apart between Japanese and American footage. In the Sentai, the Green Ranger had a rubber shield,
Yeah.
whereas the American one was cloth, since sadly they had to make do with what they had, and sometimes suits and props are damaged in transit, assuming they get sent at all. It's pretty
You see it?
shabby and terrible
Yeah.
looking sad.
Did you ever notice
Also
that when you were
trivia
young? Okay.
The crew would routinely lose the morpher props, so they would just go out to
Oh,
the
shit.
toy store and buy a morpher in order to use it for the show if they had to. The toys were just that accurate. In any case, the Green Ranger was where things suddenly got interesting. For one thing,
Suddenly.
How about 2 Red Rangers?
epic like no other.
Orange.
No other kid shows did 5-parters at the time, and the guy was just badass. He wasn't some
Trudy's
weird-ass
on
monster.
vacation.
He was
Yellow.
actual human being who was able to out-
Hulk Hogan comes out.
rival the
The
other.
feather boas are like lightsaber whips.
Zilla. He wrecked the command center, cut the Rangers off from the guidance of Zordon, and even got into the Megazord to disable that as well. Each episode felt unique, telling a new chapter of the tale as we saw the
Now, he didn't hit a girl.
Rangers step up their game. Billy
That's a guy.
became more acquainted with the technology of the command center.
The pink one's still a guy.
Jason put in more
Girl.
Yes, the Japanese footage.
and have to face Goldar and
It's more than job.
also introduced another general for Rita. Scorpina.
Spandex trying to give her.
I neglected to mention Scorpina because she has no impact on anything. She's in the
Aww.
first season here and there.
Where'd the Japanese footage go?
Reappears for another episode in the season, and that's the end of her. Ultimately, the Rangers broke the spell Rita had placed on Tommy, and he officially joined the team. It's just a really good story, in my opinion. They also started the first official romance with Tommy and Kimberly, which, while not really going anywhere with the relationship beyond their dating, it's mostly notable for the fact that they're pretty much the only couple in Power Rangers allowed to kiss. Over time, the show settled into the
Until-
standard format of issue of the day, monsters, and finally tawdry resolution of the issue.
I thought you were going to say those two. Like, no, no.
Continuity.
Thomas changed his face.
For example, there's an episode called Life's a Masquerade, a rather enjoyable standalone episode featuring some great bits by Bulk and Skull, where Rita introduces her super putties, nearly indestructible versions of her old putties. The problem is that the episode right before it, Gung Ho, already introduced the Super Putties, and the group reacts with shock at the premise of the Super Putty both times. Gung Ho is notable for another aspect, the
Yeah.
introduction of a new Zord, Titanus. It's a big Brachiosaurus-looking thing that could combine together with the Megazord and Dragon Zord to become the Ultra Zord.
Ooh.
Because remember, kids, the only thing cooler than one giant robot is a bunch of giant robots merging together to become an even bigger robot.
Yep.
Anyway, eventually the show ran into a bit of a problem. See, a lot of the fight scenes were dependent on the Sentai footage, and, well, there was only so much of it, particularly of the Green Ranger, since his Sentai equivalent actually died partway through Jew Ranger.
Oh, you didn't know that?
Did I know
Okay.
that?
By writing him out of the show. In the two-part
Bri?
candle, Rita unveils a magic candle that, once fully melted, will return the Green Ranger powers to her. Why the hell she never unveiled this
Right?
until now is a good question, but the point is that Tommy is going to lose his powers. Still, as evil
you know
plans
the-
go,
the-
this is certainly
the
better
source
than
for
her
the whole
usual rigmarole of trying
Yeah,
to ruin
Bri.
teenagers' days by sending putties to cause minor inconveniences. Plus, as the Spoony one once pointed out, using a candle to take over the world. Well, that's pretty hardcore. The Rangers fought valiantly, and Jason himself tried to stop the candle.
Bed, Bath, and Beyond.
In order to prevent Rita from getting her hands on the Green Ranger powers, Tommy transfers them to Jason, granting him his shield
That's so
and
cool.
dragon flute. Jason's failure to stop the green candle.
Of the 5, who was the only other Ranger to get that shield?
Zach did.
Still proud of you.
Was something that would haunt him.
He gets a gold star.
We'll get to that next time. Writing the Green Ranger out was also a brilliant move.
I have it right here and just stays there.
Tommy was a popular character, and instead of
I'm being beamed up.
limiting his appearances for special occasions later meant that kids would be more inclined to tune in the hopes of seeing him during those episodes. Bear in mind, they didn't actually need to write it.
I used to be in the show.
Especially for what they ended up doing later.
Hey, kids,
in the season.
remember
But
me?
a little bit of continuity
No.
really helps ensure that there is
Should have
an
done it more like
ongoing
when I was
story
like a
and
Force
makes
Ghost.
you want to see what the next episode is going to be like. Which
somewhat
brings us
translucent.
to
You will give me your power coin?
comes up with a plan that's not completely nonsensical and goofy, which is kidnap the teens' parents and ransom them for the power coins. They also take control of Billy's mind and force him to take the dragon dagger. This is the first
Okay.
time we actually see their parents, and in true silly fashion, most of them dress color-coded like their kids, with Jason's parents wearing red and Skull's parents wearing punk attire. In fact, Bulk's parents seem the most normal. Our heroes are forced to give up the coins, but of course Goldar doesn't hold up his end of the bargain and keeps the parents. However, Jason reveals that he still has the dragon coin. They recruit Tommy once again and infuse him with Zordon's own energy. However, they know it's only a temporary measure and it's likely the powers could give out.
Billy walks in front of
One of
it.
these fights, Tommy's able to retrieve the dagger and the power coins. And while he's now back as the Green Ranger, the group knows that the rejuvenation of his powers is only temporary. Besides for the running subplot of Tommy and Kimberly's relationship, there was also Zach's pursuit of
It's Lisa
Angela.
Tuttle from Saved by the Bell.
It was actually a nice.
Oh, I'm on the wrong side.
Max.
Like it seemed to be, though Angela's heart seemed to be won over whenever Zach did genuinely good things for her.
Like
Or when
magic.
he bribed
Got her
The
pearl,
character pretty
the
much
oisterizer.
disappeared, though, so ultimately it was for naught. One particular aspect that occurred to me as I was watching the later episodes of the season was the change in fighting prowess. In the early episodes, the Rangers tended to fight off putties successfully
Grab her hair.
only after they'd morphed. Otherwise, they relied on tricks or misdirection.
Everybody got their kinks, I guess.
In fact, Tommy's ability to fight off a squad of putties single-handedly.
Into some Home Depot boxes.
However, in a later episode, Zach was able to fight off a squad of putties himself too. Billy's fighting
Well, they got
ability
better.
in particular would change. In the beginning, he could barely fight off one putty, let alone a whole group of them. But by the end, he was able to hold his own in a fight beyond the stereotypical nature of his character.
I've
Mind you,
been
some of
going
this
to the
was
gym.
convenience, but it did hang in my mind as I was watching. As I said before, there was a problem of the fight scene footage. Originally, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was only supposed to be 40 episodes, ending on the two-parter Doomsday. It's a pretty intense episode.
Yeah.
It was looking grim. Parts of the Zords getting sliced off.
And the
But of course, they would
Dragon Zord's tail got cut off.
offers
That's
them a chance to give up their powers
like
that
a
they
lizard.
shouldn't have become
Grow back.
forever.
Give time.
They say they'll keep going. I imagine
Like,
the original plan
yeah,
was for
there you go.
Rita to be destroyed, hence the
All good.
offer, but of course, she was not. With the ever-growing popularity of the series, they decided to keep it on. But the first season, uniquely enough, had 60 episodes in it. So how did they fill up the remaining 20? They actually contacted the creators of Jew Rangers to produce entirely new original footage that would only be used in
Judging, he didn't know that either.
referred to by fans as Jew 2.
They were gonna have their own Zords
The
too.
problem that Power Rangers continually faced throughout its existence is its low budget. Yet what the hell kind of budget did this first season have? Filming a show was by no means a cheap process. It would have been considerably cheaper than continually producing original footage with all these characters.
Here we go.
I'm gonna put it on the screen. Bing. So that they can combine it with the Tiger Zord. Because the White Ranger's a die Ranger. He's not.
Okay. Interesting.
Having the new footage made by the Japanese producers, and as we'll see, all new sets and villains made exclusively for this show. Now, as I said at the introduction,
Oh, that's
I
true,
started
but not the
noticing
Zords.
underlying
Gotcha.
They just
themes.
recycled the foot. Well, they had the Thunder
It's
Zords.
likely not something that was intentional on the part of the writers, but I feel like it's there regardless. A continual struggle between magic, or at least steampunk fantasy for Rita, and technology for the Rangers. While both sides of the conflict utilize magic or technology, their methodology and surroundings are completely on opposite sides. Rita's palace is full of magic trinkets, and its overall atmosphere is meant to evoke a witch's lair. Her monster-making machine turns clay figures and pops them out as actual living beings. She has a magic wand to make her monsters grow.
How does she
and
get it back?
She routinely uses magic items to achieve her goals, either calling upon some ancient spirit or, say, using a candle to take away superpowers. Even the monsters themselves tend
I don't
to have
know.
a more mythological or mystical bent to them, or at the very least range on the fantastic. On the other side of the fence are the Power Rangers. The command center is a high-tech facility, and the morphers themselves are an impressive feat of technology, accessing something called the morphing grid to give them their powers. While Zordon may have been described as a wizard before they fleshed out his backstory, he clearly prefers the use of the technology that the group has at their disposal. Alpha himself is a robot, and the Rangers use giant
What?
machines to fight against Rita's magically created monsters.
But I saw him
Billy is
sitting
usually
down
the
in the
tech
other
go-to
episode.
guy.
Smoking a cigarette in the
Help the team out.
So
As a
guys,
little kid
how you like it in war?
God, General Grievous' tragic backstory as Alpha 5.
Something extraordinarily necessary and
It's a better
useful
story than
to
Jar Jar.
art. Mysticism and magic, while useful sometimes, are presented as tools of evil. What's interesting about this is that by the time we reach Zeo, that position will have swung more towards a balance. One thing I definitely neglected to mention originally was, well, the pretty obvious Wizard of Oz connections.
Let's get crunk, y'all.
Actually part of Jew Rangers' inception.
Yeah.
Bad. You've got a giant floating head referred to as a wizard, which, considering they changed his backstory slightly a bit later to be an alien,
Yeah.
could be considered the man behind the curtain idea. An evil witch, whom even Barbara Goodson, the voice actress for Rita, was told to do a Wicked Witch of the West impersonation, who had at her disposal a
Flying
flying
monkey.
monkey. It's okay to wear your influences on your sleeve like this and really show how creative you can get with it. I mean, it's not like the show actually has a...
the over.
Oh, imagine somewhere in 800 episodes they have
Monkey.
magic shoes. There are other characters on the show, but unfortunately they're kind
were
of
kung fu
superfluous.
slippers.
There's Miss Apple
Sing at the
the
gym.
teacher at Angel Grove High, who shows
What's
up the most. Principal Kaplan, who is really just there for the occasional comic relief when his toupee gets...
Miss Appleby.
Because baldness is funny?
Shut your
The
mouth.
most recurring character is Ernie, owner of the juice bar. I feel sad that he never really did much on the show aside from occasionally helping out the teens with something they were doing, because he has kind of a quiet charm to him. Like the friendly barkeep who's always there to dispense sage wisdom. Hell, if I was writing this nowadays, I'd make Zordon the mentor who could help them with larger-than-life stuff, while Ernie would be the one to help them with stuff all too human.
Bum, bum,
Overall, the
bum.
success of the show was probably not built on the most engaging of circumstances. While the acting is mixed in the early episodes, the characters do all
Like a
eventually
juice
grow
version
into
of Sam from
positions
Cheers.
as long as you ignore them preaching about community this and environmentalism that and teamwork and all that crap.
like the
Yes,
food truck
characters
guy
will be the
from,
worst actors.
the new,
although
Hawaii
not
Five-O.
knowing if they should take their
Come and
work
get it, brother.
seriously, or in some cases, they're just terrible actors. Like the aforementioned episode with Billy's not brother, with lots of people clearly dubbed in.
I owe you an apology. It seems I overreacted to something that wasn't your fault.
If I had to speculate, what I'd say really helped its success was the action.
Wee.
No other American show at the time was showing such complex fighting and choreography. And while the monsters were silly and the jokes were cheesy, there was something of a basic charm to
Jean-Claude
the
Van
series that
Damme.
made kids want to watch it. The
Why you gotta do the same kick three
storyline
times?
needed it.
He will MMA.
And you honestly weren't sure if it was all this. And while there were, of course, those times when logic broke through and you asked, say,
a whole
if
lot
Rita
better
knows
when
their
it's not
identities,
choreographed.
why doesn't
That's
she
what
call
happens when you don't do anything with the worm inside the tequila.
first season was a good start for the show, even if 60 episodes was a bit much.
Gross.
Most of them followed the same damn formula. However, things would only go uphill in terms of storytelling in season 2.
Big money grip.
So that was our first foray into history of Power Rangers season 1. So again, if you like this,
Let us know.
let us know and we will continue in kind.